choose that we can write our own script, that we
Yep.
can create our world any way that we want, and it doesn't have to be the traditional methods. Hey, everybody, welcome to my podcast. This is Julie Murphy, and my expertise is the emotion behind money. Hence, that's my first book, because I always say we work things out and we act it out. We do it through our money, our health, and our relationships. And I am very glad that we have Bri here today, because she is going to be helping us look from the hourglass of if you are child-free, your planning
Yeah.
stuff might be different. And I was just telling her right before we were coming on that, well, that was me, my first career, my only career, but from my 20s, my 30s, because I didn't get pregnant until I was 37. I actually didn't tell you this, but when I had my first child, I actually handed him over to my sister and I said, here, go to mom, because Auntie Julie's going to go over here. And she goes,
Really funny.
Jewel, you're the mom now, and I'm the aunt. And I was like, oh my God, because I was like the eternal aunt that was the aunt that lived downtown near all the high rises and showed up to parties and all of her fancy stuff. I was the
Yeah,
eternal aunt. But welcome. Thanks for reaching out and coming on the show.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Excellent. So, what drew you to doing work specifically in the niche of child free?
It was an accident. I was not intending to do this work. I knew I had a career in marketing beforehand
Mm,
and just kind of got to the point where I was hitting burnout with it and didn't want to be a part of it
mm.
anymore. I knew I really liked finance and I had been suggested this Facebook group for people who didn't have kids. And so I joined it. I was like, okay, cool. That fits me. I don't have kids. And one night there were two different posts. The first one said, what do you do now? And the second one said, what do you want to do? I commented on both of
Mm.
them and said, social media manager, I want to be a CFP. And Dr. J, who I now work with, commented and said, hey, if you want to talk, I'm a CFP. I'm happy to talk about what that's like. Otherwise, I will happily give your information to people who I know who are looking for social media managers.
Oh, very
We
cool.
yeah, we talked over Zoom the first time. It was supposed to be 30 minutes, ended up being 2 hours. It happened again. And then I said, can I have a job? And he said, let me think about that. And called me baak like a day or two later and said, I think we can make this work. And so now I've been
Oh,
here
that's
doing this.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And it really is different when, because I'm a CFP as well. And it is different planning approaches, when you
Mhm.
don't have children. It's different and you ask different questions.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was that single child free for a long time, and then I got married halfway through that journey, but then I was married for a long time without any children. I think it was 8 years that I was married without children. That's not necessarily the most normal route in this country, you know.
Yeah.
Usually people are rocking and rolling right away, get married, have kids, jump up. But so from your vantage point, what do you think are the most pressing points for people who are child free?
Yeah. So with our clients, we always say, like, are you absolutely sure? Because that is something where, we have a question on our intake. It says, do you have kids or do you want to have kids? And it says yes, no, maybe. If you answer yes or maybe, we're
Mm,
not going to be the right firm for you. It is like definite, no. Um, and then after that, we go, okay, do you care about how much money you leave behind when you die? Many times they say no.
right. They do say
Yeah.
no. That's
Yeah.
true. It's like,
And-
and sometimes they waver a little bit. Well, I guess I could do something for my nieces and nephews.
mhm.
I have one woman that I worked with for years, and she was very fortunate to have um, her grandfather was an entrepreneur, and he created a business, and so she had a family trust.
Okay. Yep.
Well, even, and I'm talking a family trust, like $130 million. So it was big, right? It
Yep.
wasn't a small one. And her family was very, like, she was the idiot. She was the idiot because she didn't have kids. She didn't do what everybody else did.
Hmm.
And I was like, why are you choosing to believe this story that something's wrong with you because you don't want to get married and you don't want children? And
Yeah.
she's like, well, that's just kind of the role that I played in the family. Like she realized it was just a story that they all hooked to, including herself. And then
Mhm.
I said, well, what makes you tick? She goes, well, they won't ever let me have control of the family money. I go, so like they even controlled her trust fund to where like she would just spit out money to her. And I go, well, I started asking her like, well, what is your passion? And what do you
Mm.
love? Like you're important too, even if you're not procreating, right?
Yeah.
And
Amen.
right? Like, why
Yes.
do we think you're not important if you're not procreating? When did that become a rule to living?
Exactly. Exactly. I
I'm
wish
confused about that.
that just needs to be a t-shirt. Like, you're still important even if you're not procreating.
That is a great one. That is a great one. And so it was interesting because what I helped her do is she started to wake up. It turned out that she had a lot of the attributes of her grandfather,
Hmm.
but the business was established at this point. They didn't like her entrepreneurial nature because she would take risks. She liked to jump off ledges and she didn't have the responsibility. So she didn't have anything like blocking her or making her hesitant. Right.
Yeah.
And so I said, so do you think that they give you some of the money from the trust? And so she talked him into giving him $1 million out of 130 million. How nice of them.
Real
Like,
real small percentage
I'm
there.
like, all right. I go, pardon my French, but fuck these people. I was like, all right, we're going to show them who you are. And then
Yeah.
I helped her. I said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we actually, she wanted to redecorate and do interior design, making them sacred spaces. And
Okay.
so she
Yeah.
would buy a house. So she bought the first one. It was like a $2 million house that then she turned into, after construction, everything, a $5 million house. Like she
Mhm.
made it a sacred space, a whole different marketplace, right? And when she came back and gave them the $1 million back, and they're like, what are you doing? Like they literally thought she was going to go piss it away and
Jeez.
spend it. But it was about a year and a half later, she gave them the money back. She goes, no, I started a business.
Mhm.
It was this interior design business that then she didn't need the trust money anymore. When was interesting is now they're like, then they wanted to like invest in her business. She's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But she had to be willing to be herself.
Hmm.
And do you see that often
I
with the
do.
child free? Yeah.
Yeah. You not only you have to be willing to be yourself, but the thing with trust is they can be fantastic and financially incredibly helpful for so many people, but the heavy emotions that come with them and
Huge.
just not only is it your life and what you have chosen to do with your life that you get judged for. But also, I've seen too where you get judged on what your siblings have done or what your cousins or other family members who are beneficiaries of the trust have done. And
Yep.
suddenly now this entire burden is being placed on you, and you're like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't,
Right.
I'm just trying to live my life and be happy. And that is so incredibly common where sometimes people will say, hey, I do have this, but even asking for something is I know I'm gonna get shut down already.
Right. Right.
And
And that's
yeah.
where she like almost went crawling to her family to ask for this $1 million. I'm like
Mhm.
going, it's out of 130 million. What's the big deal? And I
Yeah.
told her, I said, what you need to do is you just need to build your whole place outside over here while they're just paying your lifestyle to live. Like you
Mhm.
build what you want. And you know what's fascinating is then she literally, did you ever see the movie It's a Wonderful Life
Long
at
time ago.
holiday time? She
Mm.
became George Bailey in that movie
Okay.
where she bought, so there's a I don't want to give too much more information out, but so there's a resort town that now all the people who work in that resort town, they actually can't afford to live there because it's gotten too expensive. And so
Okay.
the
Yep.
next town is like 40 miles away.
Mhm.
And so people were living there and commuting. Well, now that town has become too expensive for the workers living. So now families are driving like 80 miles to work where all the wealthy people are because
Mm.
they just want the jobs. So what she did is she bought all this land in the town that was closer and she literally built single family homes to either rent them at low cost, so
Mhm.
it's affordable to the people who are the workers in the restaurants and the shops and the
That's so
grocery
important.
stores. And she now has this perpetuity of money coming in, and she's helping people who really just don't have it. I'm like going, talk about a legacy,
Mhm.
right? Talk about,
Yeah.
but because she really followed her heart. And that's what I challenge people to do all the time, that it's okay that you're different. It's okay that you're doing it child free. It's
Mhm.
okay that you were born exactly the way that you were, and you just need to scream that out to the world, and however that is,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So what
And
points are the main ones that your firm gives to people, you know?
so the first thing is really getting off that standard life plan and
Mm,
figuring out like, do you want to do other things with your life? Because so many times we can get on that hamster wheel of you go to school, you get married, you have kids, you grow wealth, you retire, and then you pass it on when you die. Well, if
mm,
you're not caring to pass it on, we can make
right,
a ton of different choices throughout your life that are different
right,
than other people.
right.
And in some people, that looks like cutting back on work. Some it looks like taking a sabbatical and trying new things. Some, do really love what they do, but they want to say, hey, I'm going to work really hard a couple months out of the year, and then I'm going to take a month or two off and go back and just kind of like have a rotating dial of what
Mm-hmm.
work looks like for them.
Right.
And, there's the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. We like to say
Mm-hmm.
file, financial independence, live early. How can we get you to live your life a little bit earlier? And what does that look like for you? There are
That's
people
awesome.
who, we have some clients who really just want to garden and love gardening and love doing that. We have other clients who love to travel, other
Mm-hmm.
clients who love running marathons. All of these different things is how can we get you more time to do those things and not just
Yep.
spend your entire life focusing on growing a huge nest egg of money? And that
Right.
is something we have so many conversations about with clients. We say we do life and financial planning. And I think it throws people off how many like questions
Totally.
we ask about their life.
I
Eh,
always ask people, like, if we were sitting here 3 to 5 years today, what would you like to see happen in your life? And they go, what do you mean, financially? And I'm like going, I don't care. And you know what's fascinating to
Mhm.
me is they never talk about the money first,
Yeah, they
ever.
don't.
It's all about what they want in their career, in their personal life, in, whether it's the stuff you're talking about, travel, sabbatical, all kinds of stuff. And in family life, you know, I always ask the question, like, do you want to still be around your family? Like, you don't
Yeah.
have, when I tell people, like, you don't have to go to the holidays with your family. And they're going, oh, but if I did, and I'm like going, why don't you choose to not and see what happens? Like, see how you feel.
Hmm.
Like, but it takes courage to break some of those habitual patterns that families have,
Yeah.
right?
I think everybody kind of looks at you with three heads. They're like, you don't have to do that. No, you don't have to do that. You can if
So
you want
true.
to, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be.
Right.
And I feel like I've seen with so many clients, it particularly happens with our soloist clients, our single clients, is they'll come to us, they'll be questioning different things and wanting to learn, and they'll say, I still go to my parents and I ask them for advice about money. And I'm going, why are you
Mm,
asking your parents? They're not living the same life as you. I've had this multiple times where their parents are telling them, no, you absolutely cannot cut back on work, and they are burnt out, exhausted, and
right.
just cry during the meeting.
So true.
Yeah. And I look at
I
their
hear that
numbers
all
and
the
I'm like,
time.
quit. You can quit. Like, don't quit
People are
tomorrow.
like,
Let's make a
what? They go in
plan.
there
But
like, what? I can quit? That's a
yeah,
thing? Like, or when I tell
exactly.
people, like, why don't you just take the package and go on unemployment because you've paid into the system for 25 years? Like,
Hmm. Yes.
but it has to do with their internal wiring and their belief system as to, like, can I or can't I?
Hmm.
And this is where I just love the fact that I've come to realize that people come to me for permission to live exactly the life that they want to live,
Absolutely. That
right?
permission slip is so, that's one thing I did not realize getting into finance of
Mm.
how many times I'd be giving people a permission slip. I'm like,
Right?
I didn't know
Every
this
day.
came with the territory. It does.
Yeah, for people to quit their jobs, they just want your blessing, and it's like, okay, well, here's the pros and the cons, and I don't know. People usually don't think that they can, but they usually can.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, there are very few times that I see somebody and I say, well, it's really not going to work out that plan for you. Most of the time, I'm like, you're doing really well. You know, I've had meetings, I can think of one at the beginning of this week where I just went, you're okay.
Hmm.
And I even said in the follow-up, I said, many times throughout the meeting, you gave clues and kind of said things that made it sound like you don't think you've done a good job. You have done a very good job, and you need to start by recognizing that
Right?
and
That's
just
so
allow
true.
yourself to appreciate where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. Can we jump back to one thing you said earlier, and that was the word sabbatical? I don't want to roll over
Yep.
that one
Yep.
because if we were sitting here in California, sabbatical is a very common word from an
Mhm.
employer standpoint. It is not here in the Midwest and is definitely not on the East Coast,
Yeah,
right? Where are you
true.
located at?
I'm in the Midwest.
Midwest.
So,
Okay, so
yep.
you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
I want everyone who hears this podcast to hear loud and clear that you might be the person that needs to educate your employer of what a sabbatical is. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean if it's not in the employee handbook that you can't actually help your employer create it to be in the handbook
Yeah.
because it is a way, because way to think about this, and certainly let me know if you think differently on this one, but it's a way that an employer can compensate you
Hmm.
that fits the budget,
Yeah. It is.
right?
It
Just
is.
like stock, gifting stock, when they have stock plans. Like
Yep.
people will go in for the reviews and they're going, well, I know they're only going to give me a 3% raise. And I'm like going, yes, but you work for a publicly traded company. So I want you to go in there and say that you want shares of stock. And they go,
Yeah.
what? I go, yeah, it's not in the budgetary process for stock or time off and sabbaticals. So it's the
Yes.
two things that I always tell people to go in there and negotiate on their, review times
Hmm.
because I think that's super powerful. Because if you know that, I did that with my cousin. She was 24 years old and she was going in to Nike and she was going to negotiate.
Yeah.
And I was giving her all those pointers of like, do this, do this, this. And when she finally accepted the job and she was single and child free, and the HR lady goes, okay, I just need to know who is behind you because no 24-year-old talks to me like this. Like, but
Yeah.
it's because when you know what kind of arsenal you can have to go in there to get the money that you or time that is worth it to you,
Hmm.
it's fascinating to me how everything just opens up. So,
It is.
sabbatical, I think people around the world are starving for sabbaticals,
Exactly.
and most people don't take them.
Correct. Many people do
So,
not take them.
what have you experienced with clients with sabbaticals?
Sometimes it is a sabbatical from work. You continue your job, you get paid for a period of time, and other times it's nope, we're quitting. We're gonna whether
Mm,
like, we're quitting, we're gonna be done for 6 months, maybe a year, a little bit longer. Just depends on each person. And we're figuring out, do we want to go back to work at all? If we do, we're going to go back at the same level of work and level of, like hustle and grind essentially. Or do you want to cut
hmm.
back and do something that, you know, I've seen somebody and it was so fun. They were working really, really hard doing this incredible job. And they said, I don't really want to do this. Okay, let's
Mm,
take time. Let's just be done. And it
yep.
can, with the, layoffs that have been happening in tech recently, it can be really helpful if, put a bug in your employer's ear if you're
Yep.
thinking that you
Yep.
want to be done
Hmm.
and see if you can go ahead and take one of those severance packages on the way out. I mean, retirement or
Why
sabbatical,
not?
get one if you can get it. And then go and th they went and they just work with animals, different things.
Right?
So,
I
like,
had
what
another
does it look
single
like?
childless client. She did exactly that. She came to me I think she was 52 at the time. And she
Mhm.
said, Jewel, I can't do it anymore. Like the
Mhm.
corporate. And I go, okay. I said, So I ran the numbers, and all she needed to do was make 20 grand a year somewhere. That's all she needed. That's it.
Yeah.
Her portfolio could do the rest. And that's another out of the box solution. People are like,
Yeah.
wait, my portfolio can pay me X amount for the rest of my life. And then I work like, I go, you could do anything. You could work at Starbucks. You could
Yeah.
work at a music. They're like going, and so I would list out all of her, things that she loved to do. And when she was in the thinking process, she had quit. She knew she was going to find something. Now she knew what she had to do. She needed to get 20 grand until she was 65. And then after 65, she was fine. Because
Yeah.
that's when her Social Security at that time would kick in. And it was fascinating. So she was just every day walking her dogs.
Yeah.
And she's walking her dogs, and then all of a sudden people are like, hey, can you walk my dog now that you're not working? Can you walk my dog? And lo and behold, it is now 10 years later. She's had a dog walking and dog kenneling business in her home because she was married, no children, but her husband had died. So she's
Okay.
now been single since 50.
Yeah.
And so these puppies are her babies. It's just something that she loves and she loves to nurture. And she's like, yeah, I didn't want any kids. She's like, it's like, I
Very
got my furry
relatable.
babies.
Yeah, I get that. I have a dog who I
Yeah.
love very much, and she is a handful enough.
Right. That's why I tell my children, I'm like, I'm not getting a dog. I don't need anything more to do.
Yeah. Oh,
But it was
yes.
funny how in this entire process, I was sitting there going, oh my God, she just created a business just because she had decided to have the courage to quit her job. And then she was just walking her dog all the time. And
Yeah.
she makes that, I think she makes it's like 27 to 32 grand a year. She makes walking the dogs.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like now she's in her early 60s and it's working.
Yeah.
And she's loved
Dog
it. She
walking
added
is good.
quality of life. That's the important piece.
Well, you're getting out, you're around animals, which are just like helps your health. Walking, of course, helps your health. So many
Mm-hmm.
things. And I think people forget that it, you know, we get so caught up in, oh, we're going to pay to have somebody else do that. You could be the person that's getting paid to do that. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be doing your corporate job anymore, whatever that is,
Right.
take
Right.
and do those things that you enjoy doing, but are paying somebody else to do maybe now, and do
Correct.
them
Right.
yourself.
Right.
So,
Well, it's funny, and it's just like recently, I just had some self-reflection even, and I was like,
mm,
and the reflection that I had is going, oh my God, I've turned into a bus driver for my children for all their activities. And
mhm,
I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to sit in my kitchen and I want
yeah,
to cook them dinner. Like, that is me in a kitchen. Like, I just love it. Like, that's
yeah,
it's almost like my creativity time. Some people
okay,
paint, some people, do other things. Mine is cooking in the kitchen. I'm like an alchemist in the kitchen. And
yeah,
so I hired a high school kid to actually drive my kids to all their stuff. And I'm like going, I'm gonna cook dinner and Lillian's gonna take you guys to your stuff. But,
there you go.
even if you're child free, like if there's things that you love that you're paying people to do, like your gardening or your lawn or your
Mm,
housekeeping, like some people love to clean.
yeah.
Like, and that's okay. Whatever that is, like just own it and be it, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. And, pay somebody to do the stuff that you don't like to do. That's one of the things we talk about with clients so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm like, what are the things you don't like to do? And they go, well, I don't like to do this or that. Okay, pay somebody. Or sometimes they'll go, well, I don't really like it that much, but it gets me moving, so I do it. And then my favorite answer is, okay, it gets you moving. Are there other ways you can get moving though that you enjoy more? So pay somebody to do
Right.
the thing that you don't really like. And if you pay somebody for a while and you say, actually, I hate somebody else doing it, I want to do it myself, then stop the service. It's fine. You tried it and you know.
That's so true, right? That is
Yeah.
so true. And why, it's interesting on we as humans have been entrained that we have to do things,
Mhm.
right? That we have to get things in a certain place. And we don't. We really don't.
Yeah.
But we have to decide to understand that we choose to plug into the world that way,
Yeah. And I
right?
think part of it is, you said you're in the Midwest, I'm in the Midwest. And when you're growing up, it is
Mm.
very much that hard work ethic. You do things
Oh,
yourself,
so true.
like take care of everything. Um, it is, you don't hire people to do it. You do it yourself. Like oil changes, you're kidding me? You're not paying anybody to do that. You're doing that. Like yard, you're
That
doing
is
that.
so true.
All those things. And,
Yeah, I've
you
had so
know,
many people make fun of me for hiring people to do all that stuff.
mhm,
And I'm just like, but I don't want to do them.
yep.
It's just not the Midwestern way.
Exactly. It was, not until the past couple years is when my parents finally started paying to have somebody change oil. Otherwise, my dad would do it all the time.
That
And,
is so true.
now we pay to have it done too for myself because I'm like, I'm not doing it. And I have done it
Right?
before. I made an absolute disastrous mess. So it's not that I can't do it. It's just that it's better for everybody if I don't.
Right? Well,
Like,
and again, it's one of those things like if you don't enjoy it, why would you do it?
mhm,
Right? Like it's
yeah,
okay that you don't want to do it. That works,
exactly.
right?
And
Empower yourself to choose that.
amen. And there can be things that you enjoy. This is so strange. I love changing the cabin air filter on my vehicle. Absolutely love it. Takes 5 minutes, super easy. You open up the glove box, you pop it out, you take the filter out, change it. I just like the feeling of putting a clean filter in. So I do that
Mhm.
myself. And it
And that's
doesn't take
okay.
long. Yeah.
Right. That's
But there are
okay.
other things I hate and I pay to have done. And I think when we're having conversations with clients, oftentimes I say, what is that for you? What does that
Mm,
mean in your travel? What does that mean in your everyday life?
right.
Like, what are those things that you don't enjoy and you want to pay somebody to do? Or just, traveling. Another one that I had recently was, well, we finally started to take direct flights. Like, you live by a major airport. Let's be
And
taking
you've
direct
not been
flights all
taking
the
direct
time.
because they were cheaper,
Yeah.
probably, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that one actually happens quite a bit and has
That
happened like,
surprises me.
yeah, it's so funny when it happens because I'm like, yes, I understand being loyal to an airline. I mean, I'm married to an airline pilot for God's sakes. So like, yes, I feel that loyalty. But now I'm like, sorry, I'm not flying your airline if it's not getting me there the fastest.
Right? Yeah.
It's
Well, I think that also comes with age, right? Like
yeah.
I'm now to a point where it's like going, anytime I wind up in the back and not in first class, I'm like, and that is such a spoiled thing for me to say from growing up on the south side of Chicago. But I'm like going, because I have so many miles, I'm part of the Million Miler Club with American Airlines, and I'm like
Mhm.
going, no, I'm going to figure out a way how to not only have the least amount of time in the air, but I also want to make sure I'm up front, or at least as far up front as I can, whether not necessarily always
Yeah.
first class, but at least, business class where I have more leg room. Because if I
Yeah.
get stuck with my knees in my chest, no thanks.
Yes. I last night my spouse booked a flight for me next week and I texted them and I said, "Did you mean to put me in 39B?" Literally the last row in front of the bathroom, middle seat.
Oh, they
And they
smell.
said, "No, there's no first class available on either of the flights that I'm taking because it's just so packed." And I said, "Well, I'm paying to upgrade myself, so I'm putting myself in the exit row. Like, I will take the exit row." But
Right?
39B by the bathroom in the back in the middle seat, I'm 5'9". My knees are already in my chest half the time on an airplane. Like, I'm not going back there. And that's one of those conversations that we'll have and say, hey, just figure out what that looks like to you. Not everybody cares about the flight.
Hmm,
Some people care
right?
more about the hotels or the experiences, but everybody has the opportunity to figure out what that life looks like for them and not what they've been told that they need to. Because how many
Right.
times have you heard people say, you don't need to buy first class tickets? Like that's unreasonable. No, it's
Right.
not.
Well, and anyone who's watching, you can go to my website, juliemurphy.com, and I have life planning questions that talk
Mhm.
all about these things that we're talking about,
Yeah.
and certainly I'm sure you guys have resources like that on your
Mhm.
website as well. How
Yeah.
can they find you
Yeah.
to
You can
grab some of those?
childfreewealth.com is our website. Otherwise, we have podcast Child Free Wealth, And then we also have socials, Childfree Wealth. Everything is Childfree Wealth. So if you just search Childfree Wealth, you'll find us easily.
And I will say,
Yeah.
I was so intrigued when I got your information. I'm going, oh yeah, I want to talk to her because
Yeah.
you hear of all these niches. Mine's the emotion behind money,
Mhm.
right? And you hear of all these niches in the marketplace going, 29 years as a financial planner, and that's the first time I ever heard of a firm that only specializes on child-free wealth. And that's
Mhm.
important because, it's important to be around a culture that is you,
Yeah.
right? Because it feels good to be around people that get you, understand
Yep.
you, and allows you the space to let your freak flag fly even more. That is one
Amen.
of the things I love. Like, you gotta be who you are no matter what. We all
Yes.
are unique. And whatever system or people or groups are going to help support more of you being you, the
Mhm.
more happiness you're going to create in your life. You're going to create more happiness for those around you because you're going to show them how to do it. Because there's so many people who are miserable today. It's like,
Yeah.
no, no more.
It's so fun to me to like have these conversations with people and just, you know, I'm not somebody who at a party enjoys small talk by any means.
Right.
Don't ask me about that. I will ask you though, if you say you hate your job, I'll be like, why are you doing it? And I don't care if I know you well at all or not. I'll just
Mm.
be like, oh, what are you doing? And the amount of times I've gotten looks of, what are you talking about? What do you mean what am I doing? I'm doing what I got trained to do. And I'm like, well, you guys get trained to do something else too. That's an option. You realize that, right? And
I don't think people realize that they can empower themselves that much.
yeah.
I don't really understand where that started in this country, but it is definitely, and I don't even think it's just in this country. I think it's around the world. But
Mhm.
because I have clients in my group coaching every week that to work on the life planning piece. I've got a couple women from Germany, I've got a couple from Canada in there. It's not just the United States. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting here and I'm going, we just have to really choose that we can write our own script, that we can
Yep.
create our world any way that we want. And it doesn't have to be the traditional methods. Like when I tell people, I'm like going, okay, so you went to school to be an engineer. Um, it's okay that it's funny when people keep hitting a brick wall in terms of like challenges with bosses and coworkers, and then they're not getting the promotions. And I'm going, the universe is trying to tell you go a different direction.
Mhm.
Because if you're in the flow and you're being who you are, then opportunities open up, more money flows to you, more things start to open up, and you feel better and you're happier.
Mhm.
And if you don't shift as you get those opportunities, at some point you're going to be dropped like a hot potato. So I have one friend who's child free and she worked in an accounting firm and she gave her life in her 20s and her 30s to this firm. Like she
Yeah.
worked her butt off. Like her social life was the stuff at the firm. And like
Mhm.
all of us that went to college with her saw her once in a great while. And then she was all ready to walk in there one day to go get that promotion to be partner, like the pinnacle of what she's worked
Yeah.
for. And they said, unless you have a severe change in your personality, you're never going to be partner here. So we decided to give you a severance package. It broke her.
Yes.
But she was seeing the signs along the way. She wasn't listening to them
Yeah.
because she didn't fit the culture of the firm. And she's now in a better place, well serving her. She's an inside CPA somewhere, and
Mhm.
she's just living her best life. And
Yeah.
so I encourage people to find the courage from within to make those shifts before the universe decides to smack you across the head. You know?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
see that often in your practice?
I do. And I think unfortunately, those smack upsides the head can be one of the big drivers in change for people. But I don't think it necessarily has to be only like one person that our clients individually getting smacked upside the head. It
Right.
can be seeing something in family or friends and going, "Oh, I gotta change things," you know? I've
Hmm.
had multiple experiences throughout my life watching family and then also my own health where it's like, I could be dead tomorrow. I just need a change. And
Right. Right.
and it's I remember somebody so clearly said, I wish at your age I would have realized that. And I kind of looked at them and I'm like, well, I guess I didn't think about that sometimes people don't have those experiences and aren't seeing them all the time and going, yeah, I'm going to do what I want. You don't really have
Right.
to tell me what to do
Right.
because I will, there was a job that I was in, didn't love it, quit. I was like, okay, I'm done. Bye.
And a
And
lot of people don't have the courage to do that because they worry about the bills that they have. That's
mhm,
actually part of what in my online courses and stuff I talk about. You want to clean up your financial past, which are your debts, while you live in
yes.
the present moment, which is your cash flows, while you're planting the seeds and saving for the future you want to create.
Hmm.
Because oftentimes we stay in jobs that we don't love because we've created too much debt
Amen.
and too many responsibilities. And it's
Yeah,
like financial jail.
it is. And that is one of the big conversations we have the 8 no baby steps. We say, build a 1 month starter emergency fund, pay off your debt, 3 to 6 months emergency fund, and
Hmm.
then save and invest for your future.
Yep.
And people will often say, well, a lot of my debts have all this small interest. And I said, okay, yeah, it does have a small interest rate, but you still have a $600 payment here, a $500 payment here, a $700 payment here. Whether or not the interest rate is small, that means you have less flexibility and less options because you have a lot more bills you have to pay every month. When you
Yep.
don't have that, your expenses can be really
You have
low.
freedom.
Yes. And you can go do the things you want. You have flexibility to go make choices. And hey, like your friend, said you only had to make $20,000 a year and then the portfolio took care of the rest of it. That's an option for people when you don't have all these other obligations.
Absolutely. And, I'll also say that, you know, when people pay off their debts, it's important to, I always tell people like, well, redirect it. Like you're probably, if you just paid off your car, you're probably going to buy another car,
Yeah.
right? How did you become your own bank? Well, I tell them redirect that payment instead of playing defense with it, shift it and play offense and create a separate savings account that's not mixed with anything else
Mhm.
and put it in there and it's called your car fund. And
Yep.
then you have cash to buy your next car, or at least half
Exactly.
of it. And then you have a lower payment so you can then fund the bucket and have a car payment.
Mhm.
But I want people to recognize whenever you talk to somebody and they've paid off their student loans, their house, their car, I've never met anyone who's sad the day that they pay those
Yes.
off.
Yeah, yeah. That's so true.
Right?
Nobody's ever sad about that.
No.
Like,
Like internally, we are all jacked and excited every
mhm.
time we pay them off.
Yeah,
But yet we recreate them.
exactly.
So don't do that. Don't
Yeah.
recreate them because we know it's in alignment with self if it creates that much happiness when you're actually done with it.
Hmm.
Like it's a huge accomplishment for people when their house is paid off. Like it's
It
like,
is.
oh, I'm standing a little taller. I could tell my employer to go jump in the lake if I wanted to. Right?
Yep.
Like you're just making decisions from a different place because you feel like you have a little bit more financial power.
Hmm.
Right? And these
Yeah,
are all choices on that spectrum that you can choose.
it is. And having, you said to redirect that money, having that plan in place and say, like, hey, I'm going to pay this off, I'm going to redirect it, making that automated so you don't even have to think about it
Right? You have to
is
do it the
so important.
same way that it came out of your
Hmm.
checking account. If you don't
Yep.
automate it, you ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly. How many times, I talk to people all the time and I say, "What are your expenses? What's your emergency fund?" And I'll say, "Hey, your emergency fund looks low based off of what you gave me." And they go, "Well, my expenses are actually this." And then I'm like, "Okay, but you're spending this. Where's that extra discrepancy? You're telling me your expenses are half of what you reported? Where's this money going?" "Well, we don't have all these bills for paying on these things." That's fine if it matters to you, but if it doesn't matter to you,
Mhm.
or even,
People fiscally BS themselves all the time.
oh yeah,
All
absolutely.
the time. I
Yeah.
usually I have learned that I want the actual statements, and here's a cash flow worksheet because I want you to actually fill it in. Because the number that they usually fill in once they look at their numbers is usually doesn't match the one that's off the top of their head.
Yep. Yeah.
That's very, very often the case. And then they go,
Mhm.
oh, that's when people realize what's in alignment with themselves and not in alignment with themselves. When they actually
Exactly.
map it out. That awareness piece is so important because then they go, oh, yeah, I actually really don't want that. So, okay, so now what do we need to do to block and tackle and get it done? You
Yeah.
know?
And I think part of that is sometimes, I've had the conversation with clients and I've said, hey, your spending looks a bit high on these things. You're reporting it as this. It's not really. And sometimes you just have to let them learn on their own. And
Oh, they got to get
go,
nosebleeds.
yep. Like you
Yeah.
can warn them about things, you can tell them things, but some days it's just
Good
they
old
need to go
experience.
and go, this kind of sucks. I'm like, what? That's valid. And now
Because they got to
let's work on
remember
that.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. And you
Yeah.
know what? I just want everyone who's listening to know that you are the creator of your life and you can create
Mhm.
everything and anything you desire, no matter what your current reality is. I've
Yeah.
seen people create the craziest things and I've helped them do it. And it's because you just have to think out of the box. So, like,
Yep.
your whole firm is set on out of the box according to society,
It is.
right? And
Yeah.
that's perfect because it's a place that people can go to be out of the box.
Yeah.
Excellent, right?
Yeah. And it's
That's wonderful.
it's
So, any
things of
last things that you'd like to share with our community that's child free and any other little tidbits before we jump off?
I would say anytime you're working on your life financial plan, make sure the person you're talking with understands you and can
Mm.
really go through and empathize and be comfortable and aware that you can create your own life, like you said, because that is sometimes where we will get people who come in and say, I tried to have this conversation and I keep feeling like I'm getting shut down. We don't want that to happen. So make sure whoever you're talking with, you can have a conversation, they can support you and help you go ahead and build towards creating the life that you want. We say make your finances simple so that your life can be amazing.
Oh, that's beautiful. I was going to add something, but I think that's the best way to like close us off here. That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Yes. Say sage words.
Yes.
Well, and again, can you just mention to people how they can find you and resources for them?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us at childfreewealth.com. The first meeting with us is always a checkup meeting where we just review everything. And that is kind of our initial point of contact. If you want to listen to our podcast, it's Child Free Wealth on all the major platforms. And then you can find us on socials at Child Free Wealth as well.
Excellent. And we'll make sure we have some links below. And then again, juliemurphy.com. And from a financial planning standpoint, my wealth management firm is JMC Wealth. And you can reach us at jmcwealth.com. And I'm all over socials and I've got online classes, free stuff, everything to help you get to exactly where it is that you want to be. So if you're jammed up on an emotional standpoint, that's my niche in the business. You're trying to get repattern some of that emotion you have going around money. I'm your gal.
Love it.
Well, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Do you want to experience free coaching based on my 25 plus years as being a financial planner and ask me any question that you want to ask me to help you get past that hurdle in your financial world? I run these free workshops every other month to start to open you up to start to help you get to this next place. The information for my free workshop, click the link below and register, and I'll see you on the next workshop. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and like and subscribe to the channel. Why? Because then you can get more knowledge all the time and be a part of a community that's actually going to lift you up.